I'm glad you're coming around. How you doing?
Anxiety attacks, no sleep, depression, hitting all the cliches. Sometimes it just feels like
You're getting lost up there.
It's okay. Everything's gonna be okay.
Miss Andrews, are you okay?
definitely not.
There are a lot of directors working today. Some directors are known for their visuals or their dialogue.
Did you show up in Vienna that December?
Did you?
No, I couldn't, but did you? I need to know, it's important to me.
Why, if you didn't?
Well, did you? Oh, oh, thank God you didn't.
Well, thank
I'm
God.
like,
Thank God
oh
you
my
didn't.
God.
I mean, thank God I didn't and you didn't. I mean, if one of us had showed up there alone,
I
then that
know.
would have sucked.
Or for their themes.
What makes a man a man? A friend of mine once wondered.
But the absolute best of directors can do it all. They can deliver everything. Directors like Martin Scorsese, Stanley Kubrick, or Bong Joon-ho, they make movies that not only tell great stories, but give us a glimpse into our own society. When people talk about amazing directors, it seems that there's always one director that's left off the list. On today's deep dive, we'll be talking about the genius of one of the best filmmakers of all time, Paul Verhoeven. Paul Verhoeven is a Dutch director, and he's active in the Netherlands, France, and United States. He started off in short films and features before venturing into filmmaking in 1971, and he's still making movies today. So let's look at the work of Paul Verhoeven. Paul Verhoeven is a Dutch director, and he's active in the Netherlands, France, and United States. He started off in short films and features before venturing into filmmaking in 1971, and he's still making movies today. And we'll try to examine his films, what they say, how successful they are, and how his unique style allows him to be overlooked. So let's start with one of his most misunderstood films, Starship Troopers. Starship Troopers tells the story of three Latinos from Buenos Aires, Argentina. That's right, I'm starting with a complaint. The main characters, based on location and name, Johnny Rico, Dizzy Flores, and Carmen Ibanez, are supposed to be Latino. In the original book, Johnny's full name is revealed to be Juan, and even though this is an appraisal of Verhoeven, and also this film, I'd be remiss if I didn't state this glaring mistake. I don't blame him, I blame Hollywood. Okay, now that that's out of the way, Starship Troopers follows these teens as they join the Federal Service, which in this universe is the only way to become a citizen in the United Citizens Federation. After their home is destroyed by alien invaders, or bugs as they're called, because they're bugs, they look like bugs. Johnny and company also join the fight to take out the alien scum.
Let me tell you something. I'm from Buenos Aires, and I say kill them all! Yeah! Oh, yeah!
Starship Troopers was released in 1997 to a low box office and terrible reviews. Robert Ebert called it a kiddie movie. The New York Times said it was tailor made for teenage boys. And Time magazine said that the filmmakers were so lost in the slang bang visual effects that they didn't give a hoot about the movie's scariest implication. The last one is so close to understanding that it's almost satisfying. Because the movie does have scary implications. Robert Ebert was right when he said, the bugs aren't important as more than props for the action scenes, and as an enemy to justify the film's quasi fascist militarism. And the bugs are in fact props. But it's for a specific purpose. The reason they are props is not to justify the film's fascism, it's to critique it. Troopers, like a lot of Verhoeven's movies, is a satire. This time it takes on imperialism and the fascism of our own military. The movie was based on a book by the same name by Robert A. Heinlein. I don't think I pronounced that right at all. While the movie takes a lot of departures, the clearest one is in the themes. Heinlein's book is very pro military, and some critics have argued that it is in favor of fascism. Even if not intentional, his book's universe suggests that the militarization of our society is not only inevitable, but also necessary. The world of Starship Troopers is one that would not be able to function without constantly being at war. And Heimlin seems to come to the conclusion that that is good, and the only way to get the younger generation respectable in the biggest air quotes ever. War isn't a means to an end in the book, it is the end. Verhoeven took that plot and the pro fascist themes of the book and decided to do a takedown of fascism and show what happens when an entire planet is consumed with not being oppressed, so much so that they end up oppressing themselves. This is never more clear than in his commercials. A staple of his work, he usually uses these to convey the culture of the world of the film. Here, they are always pro military and create an enemy of the bugs.
Everyone's doing their part. Are you?
All the bugs. In reality, these would be two different species, but the Federation labels them the bad guys because of the few similarities they do share. A media that manipulates the stories just to create a villain? Sound familiar? The commercials all end with a "would you like to know more?" showing that even the commercials aren't really commercials. In this world, they're just recruiting ads. In fact, Verhoeven leaves it vague as to whether the bugs even attacked in the first place. And we're never really given a clear answer as to whether the bugs are acting on instinct or not. But we do get a clear answer on whether the Federation cares about that.
The only good bug is a dead bug.
Verhoeven shows that a society that wants endless war means that at a certain point anyone can be the villain, even if that means scouring the universe. One of the major planets that the war takes place in, the bugs only attack due to humans trying to colonize a place that was already colonized. Now, do the humans back off and let the bugs live peacefully on their land?
Kill them! Kill them all!
It's the government's need for bloodlust, but also the humans' willingness to find a villain that drives the themes of the movie. The more casualties, the more war, the more propaganda they have to create more soldiers. Starship Troopers' universe is a war machine, and it never stops churning. The climax of the film literally has the troopers hunting a brain bug.
Brain bugs? Frankly, I find the idea of a bug that thinks offensive.
I mean, come on. Come on, Roger Ebert. It's right in front of you. They quite literally fight against intelligence with brute strength. And worst of all, they win. The film ends as the new recruits are given the same lines and roles as their previous commanders. The faces change, but that's about it.
Come on, you ape! You want to live forever?
Come on, you ape! You wanna live forever!
Welcome to the Roughnecks.
Ratcats, Roughnecks! Welcome to the Roughnecks.
Rico's Roughnecks!
And individuality and intelligence are cast aside in honor of strength, better weapons, and a marginalized enemy. How so many critics managed to miss this very clear metaphor is beyond me, but it transcends into all of his work, even his more cerebral films, like Total Recall. Total Recall is a science action film starring the big man himself, Arnold Schwarzenegger. It tells the story of Quaid, a mild-mannered construction worker that just happens to have biceps the size of tree trunks. Despite having a good job, fun friends, and an amazing wife, Quaid can't help but feel something is wrong. He also keeps having dreams of a woman that is most definitely not his wife.
I can't believe you're jealous of a dream.
Who is she?
And wildest of all, his dreams take place on Mars, a place he's never been. Quaid finds out about a program called Recall that implants fake memories into your head. How does he find out about Recall? You guessed it. Despite the objections of everyone in his life, Quaid ends up at Recall and tries the machine, and that's when things go wrong. He suddenly awakens memories someone had tried to erase, and learns he might not in fact be Douglas Quaid.
Now, whatever your name is, get ready for the big surprise. You're you. You and me.
He might be a man named Hoser who lives on Mars and worked with the underground movement to overthrow the government there. Total Recall was a huge hit for Arnold and does a great job of never answering the question of whether this is all in Quaid's head or not. It is up for us to decide, and despite Arnold's reputation of making dumb action movies, it's another entry that shows that there was more than just action in his filmography. Although the action is pretty fucking sweet.
You know how much I hate this fucking planet.
Get ready for a surprise!
Despite all that, Total Recall still has more going on. Other than the overt government versus rebellion messaging, there are anti-capitalism messages running throughout the whole film. Copenhagen, the leader of Mars, literally taxes the air. In addition to that, there's a subset of humans that have been given mutations due to the atmosphere and wonky equipment. These mutants are used as pawns by the capitalists to try and control everything. This even comes up at the climax as they turn off the air. The mutants and the rebels have a leader by the name of Quado, who acts as a savior, and Verhoeven makes a point to show that even if you kill the leader of the rebellion, the fight continues. Quaid is eventually able to bring air to Mars and free the mutants, but at the cost of destroying the system and taking down capitalism in favor of free resources for everyone. The only way out is to ensure that everyone has enough. Quaid feels joy as he ponders whether this has all been a dream or not, before being assured that it doesn't matter. It's impressive how highbrow for an action film in the 80s this was, but that's another staple of Verhoeven's work. Another thing that he does in a lot of his movies is try and normalize sex work. A lot of times this is subtle, as when he adds co-ed showers and locker rooms to RoboCop and Starship Troopers. But in Total Recall, he takes it a step further by having his main characters all hang out at a bordello and the main female lead be a sex worker. Despite that, she's never demeaned. It's not even sexualized, really, other than a general attraction between the leads.
What you been feeding this thing?
Blondes.
Sharon Stone, as the perfect suburban housewife, is portrayed more as a seductress in her role as a spy for the company. By the way, his wife was secretly a spy. Everyone in his life was secretly a spy. But even then, this is seen as a weapon in her arsenal, as opposed to any kind of shameful thing, and she's treated with the same respect as her male counterpoints. Verhoeven is a very sex-positive director. As he's recently said in an interview, sex is the essence of existence. Without it, there are no species anymore. So why is that a big secret? There is a new purity. Verhoeven treats sex like it's very much a part of everyday life, that we shouldn't be ashamed for it, and that could have never been more apparent than Showgirls. Yes, Showgirls, the infamous 1995 NC-17 film, was immediately panned by both critics and audiences. Elizabeth Berkley, the film's star, was ostracized by Hollywood, and even the director took a pretty hard hit. The film tells the story of Naomi, a dancer who finds herself on the way to Vegas to be a showgirl. Once she gets there, she is swept up in the world of stripping, Las Vegas nudity shows, and all the debauchery that comes with that. Now, I know people love this movie, but I am not a Showgirls apologist. I saw it on VH1 as a teen and I couldn't finish it. You know how bad a movie called Showgirls, starring Jesse Spano, has to be for me to stop watching it as a young teen? I know that in time, some have warmed up to the film. And while I do think it was probably treated harsher than it should have been, I still won't say he hit the mark on this one. Despite the obvious misses that the film makes,
I used to love Doggy Chow. I used to love Doggy Chow too.
It does try to talk about some important subjects under the veil of titillation. I think one of the reasons the film was so widely panned is not because of the acting or the length, but because the film tries to do something that very few films do. It tries to tell a story about sex workers from the sex workers' point of view. Naomi makes her way up through the ranks, stepped over by even the other dancers because she started as a stripper.
You see, darling, you are a whore.
She is treated as lesser by the other dancers. On top of that, there is a clear and constant theme of the dancers being treated as objects.
Yeah, Caesar will sing, and then we'll go back to my place and we'll sing. Just the four of us.
Whose consent is only a matter of fee. The biggest example of this is when one of the girls is literally sold to businessmen at a boat show. The exploitation is nothing new, but this is a rare case where there is no knight in shining armor. There's no good John, And in fact, every time that Naomi puts her faith in any man, they are shown to be another victimizer, or at least an enabler. Crystal Connors, played by Gina Gershon, wants to dance by Naomi, but it's mostly just to mock her. Naomi understands what's happening and does not want to go along with it, and makes her protest very clear.
You just do Zach and I'll watch. 500.
Done.
This scene is so important because it shows that women in this world have no identity of their own. When a no is on sale to be turned into a yes, there's no such thing as consent.
I said done.
The film even brings up how that mentality bleeds past the sex workers and onto everything. Naomi's friend is a makeup artist, but even she can't escape and ends up abused as well. Now, do I see this as having an all men are bad theme? I mean, you could take it like that, but I see it as an additional indictment of a world where people are viewed as lesser. The women in Showgirls are seen as commodities, and thus their opinions and values aren't even taken into consideration.
You're not gonna let him get away with this.
Andrew Carver is at the Paradiso this year, but he might be at the Riviera next year or the Stardust the year after that. He's part of a team. So are you.
And while every man is seen as bad, I take it as you cannot live a life as a consumer of exploitation without getting some kind of blood on your hands. It's the workers who must fight against the system and do what they can to survive. In the end, Naomi leaves the debauchery of Vegas for Hollywood. So, despite all the missteps that Showgirls makes, it does try to say important things about how easy it is for sex workers to find themselves exploited. And that there is no real freedom until we free those workers. Whether that means legalization or abolishment is not for us to decide, but it is something to consider. Now, those are some of his biggest hits, and he has a lot more features. But we're going to finish with one last one, the main feature. Verhoeven used all his tricks, his love of violence, his commercials, his satire, to create the perfect film. It's a film that has no right to exist or be as good as it is. The film that can be viewed on so many different levels, and you can't help but love it. So next time on the deep dive, we'll be talking about his masterpiece. Come back to figure out exactly what movie that is.
What is this shit?
Also, before we leave, here's Arnold Schwarzenegger and Paul Verhoeven on the commentary track for Total Recall. It's the best commentary track ever. If you can find Arnold on a commentary track, you're in for a good time. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Here, this is my job. I'm a construction worker, and I'm totally amazed.
And he's looking at something.
I'm looking at the gun.
Yeah, so this is really this.
Exactly. How did I do that? Here's the great fight scene with Sharon and me. Ow, that hurt.